Welcome, Leda. Today on the show, we have Leda Eizenberg, who is running for school committee, and she's taken a little time out to chat with us. So Leda, why are you running for school committee?
First of all, Rama, thank you so much for having me on. This is really exciting. I'm running for school committee because I am an educator. I'm a former high school English teacher, and I think that perspective, coupled with the fact that I'm an elementary parent, will be really useful for the committee to have the lens of a teacher. I'm also Wellesley educated. I went to Wellesley Public Schools K through 12, and it's the excellence in education that in part brought me back to the community. And the bit of insider knowledge I have about what I think made the schools great when I was there, and makes them great to this day is something I'd like to share with the committee.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that about you. You have so much perspective on Wellesley in general.
It's also where I had my first teaching job. My own junior year English teacher hired me to be a long-term sub when I first started teaching in 2003.
That is so cool.
I have a bunch of angles.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, you do. So what are one or two of your main points for your position for candidacy?
I think during the pandemic, we've all been so concerned with the schools, and it hasn't been easy on anybody. It hasn't been easy on teachers. It hasn't been easy on administrators, hasn't been easy on families, and it hasn't been easy on our children. And I want to make sure we emerge from the pandemic with an eye on everybody's mental health and social emotional well-being. I want to be sure we give our teachers the time and resources to really assess where the kids are academically, of course, but perhaps even more importantly, in terms of how they're doing socially and emotionally. And I also think it's an exciting opportunity to see what technology has worked and how we might apply that going forward. We also need to be concerned with teacher morale. I'm still in touch with a lot of my teacher friends and former colleagues in other districts, and they're feeling really ground down. And so I just want to make sure our teachers know how much we appreciate them and feel really supported as we come back to traditional schooling, whenever that may be.
Right.
The final thing I want to say about that is just that I think the pandemic is, people talk about teachable moments. And I think in a lot of ways, it's a wonderful teachable moment wherein we can model for our kids and help teach our kids grit and resilience and all those popular education buzzwords at the moment. We're being given an opportunity to live them. But that work needs to deliberately make its way into the classroom. So just to make sure we have an eye on that. The other thing I'm really excited about is Wellesley's leadership on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the hiring of Dr. Curry, I think, was such an exciting step. And then, as is true in so many cases, the pandemic took a lot of our attention. That said, I think this year there's been a lot of great work given to the DEI work. And I am excited to see the strategic planning around those issues and how they move forward. I serve as a committee chair for the World of Wellesley Anti-Racism Action Committee with two student leaders from the Young Ethnic Scholars at Wellesley High School. So I'd like to take some of the work that they've done and hopefully we as a district can learn from student perspectives as well as we continue our DEI work.
Excellent. That sounds awesome. And what are some of the other things you're involved with around town?
So as I'm on the World of Wellesley board, and that's where I co-chair the Anti-Racism Action Committee. I'm also the co-president of the Upham PTO this year, and I've served for a few years as the Parent Advisory Council rep for Upham. So that's the special education parents in town who work together sort of as a townwide PTO for special education needs for lack of a better analogy. I've also been a town meeting member since representing Precinct H since 2017. And I'm currently on the board of the Wellesley Education Foundation, although if I'm elected to school committee, I'll step down from that position. But it's, again, given me some really neat insights into projects and strategic planning in the district and wonderful work that our teachers are doing.
That's amazing. You're almost overly qualified.
Thank you.
I know. It's interestingly. So what are some of your hobbies?
I am a big reader. As I said, I was an English teacher. I have a book project I've been working on about my grandmother, who was a Nazi resistor when she was an art student in Berlin. That book project is older than my 10-year-old son and doesn't always get a lot of attention, but is something I'm still working on.
So you're actually a multi-generational anti-racist.
Yes, I am. I am at least third generation, possibly going further back. I am since I moved to Wellesley, I've been a big baker. So I was ahead of the trend on the pandemic baking in terms of making bread. My daughter has also gotten really into YouTube crafting videos during the pandemic. So our house is now, our kitchen table is like half art studio where I make really mediocre paintings and such alongside my 8-year-old, who is definitely more talented than I am.
You're going to have a whole art series.
Yes.
This year.
This painting is not mine. That is an actual good painting.
But thank you for clearing that up.
Yes, I didn't want to appear to be taking credit.
So tell us a little story about one of your experiences that you've had in town. Something that stayed with you or made you smile.
Everyone who grew up in Wellesley, and there's a decent number of townies around whom I see on a fairly regular basis, which is lovely. My campaign manager, actually, Marissa Rosenbaum, grew up in Wellesley as well, and her younger brother was in my grade. But everybody is jealous of this book group that I'm in that meets ordinarily at the high school, currently over Zoom, which is mostly retired teachers from Wellesley High School and me, and other area educators. And we have a Harvard professor who facilitates, and we read various great books, novels every year. And everyone is really jealous because I'm in a book group with the Goddards and Mrs. Frick and Mrs. Adler, and Mr. Esposito, who is actually not retired, but could have retired, was eligible for retirement the year I graduated from Wellesley High. Right. So I still have these sort of long-term connections to the folks who made me want to be an educator and who have connections around town. And so I love meeting with them, and it's a reminder of why I'm so passionate about education, the intellectual rigor of the group, but also the community spirit. It's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's very that's just really excellent to hear. That's an unusual story.
Yes.
It's not every A student gets invited back to do a book group.
They just get rid of me.
Yeah, well, yeah. Why would we want to, really?
Thank you.
Especially now that we know that you're such a crafter.
Right, careful. You might be bestowed with mediocre gifts.
I'm cool with that. And so anything else you'd like to add? Anything else about your platform, school committee, anything else?
I am really excited to learn. I've already, it's interesting watching the meetings now and thinking, I'm going to be on the hook for some of this decision making if I'm elected. And so I've really had to broaden my understanding of, what is the committee's biggest work, which is the budgetary aspect. And it's complex, but I'm so impressed with the work our committee has been doing and the administration has been doing in crafting these really tricky budgets because revenues in town are down. But I'm eager to learn. I'm ready to collaborate. I'm ready to ask questions from maybe a teacher's perspective. And so I am really grateful for your time and for the time of your viewers, and excited to get going on the committee, I hope.
Awesome. So I do have one last question for you. Someone brought this up with me the other day. So how do you feel about hiring more teachers of color for the public schools?
It is an issue. I think many of us who've been paying attention in DEI work are excited about. We know that not only for students of color, but for white students, having teachers of color is a really positive and powerful educational experience. I think our challenges aren't just in the hiring of teachers of color, though. I think our challenges are also in the retention of teachers of color and in the efforts we need to put forth to make teachers of color feel welcome in the district. The Panorama survey data did show some differences in how white teachers and teachers of color experience a sense of belonging in Wellesley. And I think we know from inclusion work across the board and from recruiting work, it's not enough to sort of clear a seat at the table for someone. You need to rebuild the table. And so I defer to experts in the field, like our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, in terms of what structures we need to build up to retain our teachers of color and make sure that they feel valued. But I think that's a really important next step in our work, is not just the hiring, but the creating a sense of community for BIPOC teachers in Wellesley.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This was so fun.
It was fun.
And good luck. And I'm sure the campaign will be awesome.
Thank you so much, Rama. I really appreciate this time. Thank you.
So welcome.